So I'm sitting here with Andre,
who is the host of CE5 podcast, which is also up on YouTube.
And we are at a CE5 in New Zealand against this beautiful backdrop, and we're with a whole bunch of bugs, but there's no snakes or spiders, so that's good.
Right.
Okay, so the first question I have for you, Andre, is what would your advice be for people who are just starting out with CE5?
Do it. Just do it. I think it's really important to just start experimenting and kind of figuring out what works for you, and the quickest way to do that is just to start and get some. There's educational materials online. Really, the only thing that you really need is to be awake, and so you don't need any equipment to start with it. And I think it's great to do it with people. So yeah, I would recommend connecting with people online. There are CE5 groups popping up all over the place, and there are databases online where you can connect with them.
Awesome. Okay, I'll put some links to those databases in the notes below. So like basically your advice is like just get out there and do it, because there is a lot. Some people do get kind of stuck in the research mode, and right. Maybe even in life, I feel like people get into the analysis paralysis thing, right? Yeah, so that's awesome advice.
Yeah, I think that get like do some research, but get like the only way you're going to be able to really feel like you know what's going on is experiencing it for yourself and having that confirmation. That's what counts, and that's what brings people into this, and people get so energized about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That experience is totally thrilling. First undeniable sighting is just like amazing. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Second question is, so what does your average CE5 look like? Who goes? What's the agenda? What's the general experience? What's the outcome and all that?
When I've gone out with a group, normally I've connected with people either via the via a Facebook group, or the I think it's called the CE5 network app that was put up by CSETI, and I've connected with a couple of people, and we basically just try to coordinate a day that works for everybody, and hopefully one where the weather, so you kind of have to be a little bit flexible with weather, and you can do CE5 work indoors, and I have done that many times when the weather hasn't been great or too cold or that kind of thing. But yeah, once you select a date, you gather a group. You need, if you're going to be outdoors, get some chairs, and really you don't need a chair either. You can use a tarp or a blanket. You can sit on the floor. We've gone out on the beach and done it before. And the basic process is that we kind of come together and do something to kind of sync the group up. We'll have some chit chat and kind of get to know each other and kind of get centered and grounded. And then we can. I would often use a singing bowl or some kind of thing to kind of set the stage for a meditative experience. And ultimately, CE5 is an experience in consciousness. So it's a real practice in meditation and higher states of consciousness. So when we're ready and we've kind of settled into the land wherever we are, someplace that's kind of far enough out from town where you're not going to be bothered by other people, then we'll go into the meditation. I've had some practice, so I'd like to guide meditation when there's other people around. Basically, we go through a process of just going into deep relaxation, and then from a meditative, from kind of a state of higher consciousness, visualize going out from where we are on Earth, and do this process called coherent thought sequencing, where you kind of expand outwards in your awareness and consciousness out from the Earth, out into space, beyond our solar system, out across the galaxy, beyond our galaxy, and intend through the expanse of consciousness, the field of consciousness that is the basis for the universe that we live in, intend to see or connect with some kind of higher life form, whether it be ET or other kind of being that is willing to come and interact with the group in a way that can be beneficial for us as a group and for the Earth as a whole at this important time of transition and transformation towards a sustainable and peaceful civilization. So in a nutshell, you sit, you meditate, you go out, you try to connect with these extraterrestrial beings and then guide them back in using your thought, kind of zooming back into where you are on Earth and inviting them to interact in any way that's appropriate and safe for them at that time and for us at that time. And some amazing things happen. It can be, there can be really subtle things and some really mind-blowing things that'll knock your socks off.
Yeah. Wow, very well said. So what would be like an average CE5 for you guys? What types of internal and external experiences would you have?
So some experiences would be, obviously there's the visual component. So people associate extraterrestrials with UFOs and with craft that are of unrecognizable origin. And so that's something that I've experienced in the field with different groups in different parts of the world. And yeah, so I mean, you might see what looks like a satellite or, just moving across the sky, and then it might flash a couple of times, and then you'll notice it make a right-hand turn. And which doesn't, which would, I mean, that's very anomalous activity. We've had like kind of emanations of light appearing very close to us in the field, and that's a very common thing for CE5 groups to experience. We refer to them as like flash bulbs because they kind of look like the flash of a camera light almost. And they can be different colors, and they can appear very, very small, like these little orbs that kind of just like flash, and they can be very close to us in the group. And that's a sign of some kind of intelligence. It could be, it could be an ET being or a craft or a whole civilization, kind of their consciousness shining in through that little light. The ETs have very advanced technologies that interact with consciousness and with like kind of transdimensional technologies, so they can do all kinds of things that they appear like magic. It's hard to explain the process unless you've kind of I don't know. We're not ETs, so it's all kind of a mystery, but it's a beautiful thing to experience those things. Another thing that I've experienced is having the ETs interact with electronic equipment, or even just kind of sounds that will kind of come through the group. Just sounds that
auditory.
kind of appear out of nowhere.
What would those sounds sound like?
Like high-pitched electronic tones is what I've heard. We've also had like sounds of what sounds like a voice, but when there's no other people around. And of course, contact can happen in much more subtle ways, and the ETs will only interact with people to the degree that they're comfortable. So if you're frightened or anything, they'll kind of back off. But more subtle ways that contact may happen is kind of different senses of feeling or emotion coming through, or changes in temperature. Sometimes you can have this kind of subtle sense of being touched. I've had that once where I was being touched on the back. That was interesting.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so really a whole variety of things can happen. People experience things in consciousness, different visions or, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Cool. Okay, so now my question 3 is kind of just about like, so who are you? What's your story? What got you interested? Are there any, and in your experiences, are there any standout experiences that you want to share?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a big question.
I know, sorry, it's like 5 questions in one.
Yeah. So I first got into, I wasn't, I'll try and kind of give an overview of how I got into the subject. One night I was, well, basically, so just as a starter, I hadn't really been interested in the topic of UFOs or extraterrestrials since I was a kid. I was really interested when I was a kid. I would, do drawings and like imagine who would these people be if they were coming to visit us and why would they be here. And but then as I kind of got older, I was like, I was like, oh, that's an area that's full of, I don't know, all kinds of stuff I don't want to get into, and strange, I don't know, strange characters and late night Discovery Channel documentaries or whatever. And so I hadn't like connected with the subject at all for a long time. And then one night I saw something in the sky that was kind of unexplainable. I later figured out that it was some kind of drone that was being flown by a military base nearby. But seeing that in the sky kind of excited something within me and wanted me to look into the subject. I was like, oh yeah, wonder what's going on in the UFO world these days, or what's. And I was like, I haven't really Googled that before. And so I Googled and stumbled upon the 2001 Disclosure Project press conference that was held at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. I watched that from beginning to end, and mind-blowing.
Totally.
So I was like, okay, well, no, I really have to dig into this. So I did a bunch of research and eventually kind of checked all the boxes with where Dr. Greer and CSETI was coming from, learned about the whole CE5 initiative, and got the book Contact Countdown to Transformation. Read stories of people who had been out on these expeditions and having experiences of contact with ETs, and it really resonated with me. And I was like, okay, it's a really positive way of approaching all of the major problems that are happening in our world today. And it's something that everybody can do. And it just felt so empowering and kind of, the spiritual component was really important for me. And I found out that there was going to be a training that I could go to in the not far future. And so I signed up for it immediately, and I was like, this is, I kind of put out the intention, and was doing this coherent thought sequencing every night, just kind of asking for some kind of confirmation that this is the direction that I should be going in, and that this is not BS, and that you can actually make contact with ETs, because it seems like something from a science fiction story. And I had basically, before the expedition even started, I had this pretty notable experience. It's the only daytime experience of, I was driving down the road, and up in the sky, like 45 degrees in the east, in my hometown, I was just driving down this kind of long, wide road, and up in the sky, I saw this kind of whitish, silverish, seamless disc that was there. It didn't look like it was far away, just kind of floating over the town, and I squinted to look at it, and I could see it for a few seconds, and then it just kind of blipped out and disappeared. And I was like, what was that? I was like, I'd never seen anything like that before, and I wasn't expecting to. I had known that all these CE5 experiences, like, it's not often, that you would see them just appear in a kind of almost physical way like that, so visually, because it's not safe for them to do so a lot of the time. But yeah, so that happened, and I was like, okay, wow, this is great, and the expedition was great, and all kinds of things happened. And from then on, I've just been really passionate about CE5 and engaging with it as often as I can, and getting other people to learn about it and try it and experience it for themselves.
Yeah, and you decided to start a podcast too, even.
Yeah. So now I'm working on doing some interviews and getting people to share their own stories, so that there can be more of a voice for this movement, which really needs to be global in order to have an effect. And I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, totally. That's wonderful. That's so great.
And it's exciting what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's so wonderful. You're putting in the initiative and the effort, right? Because it does take a lot of time and planning. And so you're just starting it, right? Like you're just kind of putting it together.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your intention or your goal for it? Like why? What's your why, or like your passion for it?
Yeah, well, the why is to expand this movement and transform our planet into one that, you know, that isn't based on secrecy of this important information that can give our children and grandchildren a world that has, you know, kind of been the goal of civilization up to this point, as one of peace and universal love, and one that will eventually allow us to propel up and out to explore the stars and connect with all of our other, you know, our star family, and we're all children of the universe. So I mean, that's the big goal, sharing stories about people, you know, giving a platform for that to happen. I think, you know, there's more and more happening in the digital space where people can have a voice that wouldn't have been able to have a voice before, and so
yeah, it's accessible.
It's so exciting, and and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. And
awesome! It's such an exciting time in history, hey? Yeah,
Definitely.
Very cool. Very cool to be a part of it. Anything else? Any last words, thoughts?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah. Bring bug spray to CE5.
Yeah, we got flies all over.
There's like 150
right
bugs over here, and I think we probably killed about 20 like on our foreheads. Seriously. But you're from Australia, right?
Yeah, well, I live there now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's why I made that comment that there's no snakes and spiders in New Zealand, which I just learned today, which is incredible. So when you're out there, do you actually have to like worry about, like, where do you do a CE5 in Australia?
Oh, if you're out if you're out at night, maybe some mosquito spray, but in the wintertime it's pretty all right. And you know, spiders and snakes aren't really that interested in people most of the time anyway, so it's pretty safe.
Okay,
yeah.
That's good. Good to hear. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. I so appreciate what you're doing and for you coming on and sharing your story.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Glad I could be here.
Thank you.
When we were doing that interview, I was so impressed that Andre wasn't waving his hands all around his face like I was compelled to do with all these flies that were landing all over our faces. What I think that demonstrates is Andre's amazing focus and passion when he is talking about CE5, and that is what is behind his energy and drive to put together the podcast as well as illustrate them and upload them on YouTube too. So I highly encourage you to go check that out. You can click on this video to start with. It covers the guiding principles of CE5 and is episode 1 of a 21-part series that Andre is putting together and gives a lot of great information. I hope Andre's story inspires you to get out there and make contact.